Hello, this is Lisa Tomey Zonneville with Prolific Pulse Press. Today we welcome LindaAnn LoSchiavo. I'm really excited because LindaAnn is going to be producing her book, Cancer Courts My Mother, in November with Prolific Pulse Press. So we're so excited to have her be a part of this. And so welcome, LindaAnn. LindaAnn, how are you doing today?
Yes, thank you very much for making the time for the interview. It's really wonderful to be able to talk to our audience, our Prolific Pulse Press audience, and talk about a new book. Always a good feeling. I have quite a different origin story. My parents couldn't get housing when they were first married. So we were living with my grandparents, which was a big, happy household full of aunts and uncles. And I didn't really grow up with children. I grew up with adults, and this really changed my whole trajectory. So, my first conversations when I was 2 and 3 years old were all about Italian grand opera. Opera was discussed in depth at the dinner table, and there were all arguments about who had the right to sing a certain aria and who should be banned from singing in a certain opera house. And these were our discussions. And Italian grand opera is set around the central female figure. And I grew up in New York City, and I started being taken to Broadway when I was 4.5 years old. And I found the plays, not children's theater, real nitty gritty Broadway for adults. And I was very puzzled by the plays because they weren't centered around a female figure. They were usually set around a male figure. And that motivated me to say, I have to become a playwright and I have to write those roles for women. So it was that odd trajectory of opera first, then adult theater, growing up in New York, that really shaped me. But what got me into writing poetry, I was 3 years old and I could read. And because we lived in a big household, a lot of greeting cards would come. And it was my little privilege that I would open the card for that person at the table and I would read it aloud to everybody at the table. And the cards were usually by Hallmark. And I felt this was the most tragic, horrible poetry I had ever heard in my life. This kind of moon, June, spoon rhyming. And my aunt and I started our own custom greeting card operation when I was 3 years old. My aunt drew the picture and I wrote the rhymes. So if I'm a formalist, I owe it all to Hallmark.
Now, do you still have any of those cards?
Well, we gave them away.
Mm-hmm.
They were given
You
away
didn't
to
keep any
people.
stock ones?
No, unfortunately, there was a lot of arguments in my parents' house, and I moved out when I was 16, and my mother threw out everything I had written.
Oh, that was devastating.
It was. It was. Because I had my first plays on stage when I was 9 years old in New York City,
Wow.
and they were all junked. My mother said, "Well, you don't live here anymore, and I didn't know you were coming back, so I threw everything out." So I have no archives. And my parents didn't attend any of my performances, so I have no pictures of me. If anybody took pictures, they were in other people's cameras. In those days, you had to go somewhere to develop your
Oh, sure.
pictures.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Wow.
No
As
archival
one,
material.
wow. As one who loved looking at pictures when I was a child, and I still do, um, that would have been devastating to me to not have those memories. So I'm sorry that happened to you. That makes me sad to think about that.
Yeah, it was a real violation and treachery all the way. It didn't sit very well with me. The only thing it made me say is, "Well, I have to keep writing." But I had my first play on stage when I was 9 because I had seen a lot of theater by the time I was 9 years old, and I also had my first poem accepted. It was called The Tiger. It was just in some campus magazine. It was probably some little thing, maybe 14, 16 lines, but I was very proud of it. That's Chuck, that's gone. But, I still have those memories of being an early writer. And when I hear people talk about imposter syndrome, I don't even understand what that is.
You just do what you do, and it just comes natural to you.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do you have, how would you describe your writing style and the themes you often explore in your work?
I would say that my great subject is death.
Mm-hmm.
Death always, whether it's Cancer Courts My Mother, and it's the death of a mother. My suicide book is definitely about death. My Halloween book, of course, has a lot of death in it. And the way this book evolved is another interesting story. I had published with a British publisher a large work, and it was called Apprentice to the Night. And it was reviewed very generously by a lot of people, but it had a section of these poems in it. Like only maybe about 4 or 5, but they really, really struck a nerve with people. And everyone who reviewed it or who interviewed me afterwards on Zoom and so forth were talking about those poems, and also poems I wrote about my grandparents, but mostly they focused on this. A lot of people were then losing a mother or losing a grandmother, and those poems just resonated with those particular people, just as happenstance. And so many people made such a fuss over those few poems that I immediately started working on Cancer Courts My Mother.
It's quite the book. I was really taken by it, and the fact that it's a chapbook makes it very concise, and I love it. And of course, I did love it. I accepted it for publication.
Right, thank you.
But, congratulations on publication, not just this book, Cancer Courts My Mother, but also your other book. Tell us about that.
Vampire Verses or The Apprentice to the Night?
The one that's coming out in this month.
Vampire Verses. Very interesting. This is my second book about the vampire. During the pandemic, there was a global sensation called Dracula Daily, and it attracted more than 250,000 participants every single day. The book by Bram Stoker is basically an epistolary novel, and it starts on May 3rd or May 5th when Jonathan Harker is in a carriage going to Castle Dracula, and they would post the date of the letters, and everybody would get together, and just a global sensation. So I went back and I read a lot of 19th century vampire works, and I wanted to see, was there room for me, or had everything been said? And I realized that what I wasn't seeing in all of the vampire books and all the vampire short stories and the historical vampire things, I wasn't seeing a lot of popular culture in it. So, for example, my vampire book has influencers, right? People renting films, groups of vampires getting together to watch films from Netflix and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of popular culture, there's dating apps and everything. And when the first one was Vampire Ventures, and it was widely reviewed, and a lot of people were very stopped by the idea that it was so funny, and several critics said, I don't know if this author realizes how funny this book is. Well, obviously we know what's in our book, and I find vampires funny, actually. But the whole thing about, Bram Stoker was brilliant, the idea about rising from the dead. Who does that? Christ, right? And now he's got his Count Dracula. Who can top that act?
Yes, I got into vampires about 25 years ago. Someone I thought don't think I'd ever want to go to a vampire movie or anything. Very first one I went to, I got hooked, and then I had to start watching everything, and yeah, and everybody's different perspective on it. I'm definitely going to have to read yours. This sounds like my kind of book.
Oh, good, good, good. And we learn from people, and there's a whole section that's called Tribute to Bram Stoker, where I'm using his characters and then taking them in a different direction. One of the poems I'll read, uh, he forgot to do it, so I decided to write a poem about it. That Dracula is planning his annual Halloween soiree. You don't find that in Bram Stoker, but why not, right?
Wow, maybe that would be it'd be a good time to read that poem. Would you like to do
Oh
that?
yes, oh absolutely, absolutely. Another one that was very popular is Dracula thinks about writing his memoir, and that also resonated with people. This poem has been published at least 10 times.
Okay.
Yeah. Dracula plans his Halloween soiree. Near Halloween, routine tension sets in. Expected entertainment, catering, decor. A bachelor like Dracula tries to outdo last year's event, though some attended by mistake and won't return. Tradition dictates hospitality is essential to his kind. Longevity must be preserved. Drinks are but one concern. His entourage deserves to be amused. Instead of necks turned red as afterbirth, refreshments can be served by a blood bank, thanks to a generous donation made. Exquisite concentration on details is a tourniquet for his unquiet mind, obsessed with real estate, castle upkeep, demands imposed by Vamphood's life and death. His party plans completed, its checklist ticked, the Transylvanian lord licked his lips, succumbed to tempting pleasure-crested lips.
Well, definitely. I can see why it was published in these kind of places. Excellent, excellent.
Thank you.
Done.
And you know
Thank
what the
you.
line means, that some attended by mistake and won't return, right? So that's
Unsuspecting guests to the party.
right, right. They didn't realize what they were getting into.
Absolutely.
He's sort of
That's great.
sort of the goth Jeffrey Epstein, but in a different way, right?
Oh dear. Well, that was wonderful. Thank you for reading that.
Yeah, thank you. I sent Juan my nonfiction piece on how vampires started as pariahs and skeletal, miserable-looking creatures, and all of a sudden they got very seductive and sexy, and that whole revolution, because the folklore vampire was not attractive. It's not anything that you wanted anywhere near your bedroom. And so I was very fascinated by the whole change and exactly what happened. And I had written an article about it. So I thought that Juan is going to get so many poems and so many short stories, and he's probably not going to get any nonfiction. So that's what.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
I said.
I think he'll really like it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the wonderful.
Thanks for the tip.
You bet. You bet. So let's talk about Cancer Quartz My Mother. So give me the backstory on the book, maybe, and see where we go with this.
Well, years before writing Apprentice to the Night, I was the caregiver for my mother. And when I came home from that experience, I traveled to Florida to my parents' house. They lived in the Tampa area and took care of her. And the room was phenomenally hot. It was an inferno. It was 138 degrees. We had a thermometer on the wall. And even though my parents had air conditioning, there was no way you could escape the medical equipment in the room, 2 oxygenators and other things constantly pumping out Dantean heat in the room. I don't think I could survive that heat anymore. But when I came home, of course, I wrote poems, and I would go to these open mics, and I would read them, and so forth. And I just sort of kept that little bit of, 5 or 6 that I had written off to the side, not planning to write a book about my mother. And then in 2022, when I started working on Apprentice to the Night, which is very much a family book, poems about my real family making pumarol in the basement, Labor Day weekend, and my grandparents, but not strictly not strictly an autobiographical book, because there's a lot of poems about sisters, and I don't have any sisters, but they were nice to include in the book, so I invented some sisters.
I like that.
Relationships with them. Actually, I have a brother who I love dearly, and there's no brother poems. I don't know why, but it just worked out that way. And then there's this alcoholic father, and that's not my father. My father didn't drink. These wastrel fathers who are much more interesting and glamorous than my father. But I grew up in a very unusual family, because my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and when I was a little girl, my father worked in the naval shipyard, and he had no access to a telephone. And my parents used to telepath to each other every single day. And it was credible information, because my father used to play numbers, and my mother would give him the number that she thought he should play, errands that she wanted him to bring home, things. So it wasn't just a fantasy. They really were talking to each other.
Interesting.
And when I was 11 years old, I got a gift that I wanted very much, my own phonograph. And a few weeks of playing it, and my phonograph went on fire. And my father was very upset, not so much that the phonograph went on fire, but that he would have to spend a weekend, his precious time off, and he would drive to New Jersey, and he'd have to return this thing, and he was very grumpy about it. Well, my father takes off on a Saturday morning, and my mother and I realize that he has left all the paperwork behind. The receipt, the sales receipt, the warranty, and so forth. And my mother says to me, "Oh my God, your father, he's just going to have a fit. He's going to get there, and he doesn't have his stuff. Call Daddy, tell him to come home." And I knew what she meant, that I should telepath to my father and tell him to come home. She didn't explain how to do it. She didn't explain why she wasn't doing it, since she telepathed to him every day. But I knew that this was a real crisis, and I would be somehow blamed for this trip to New Jersey that was flawed. And I managed to get the right frequency and tell my father to come back, and he was back in a few minutes, and that was my first time with telepathing, and not my last time. So telepathing, especially in the time before the mobile phone, was very useful to our family, because
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
I have had more like notions, and it could be some kind of a way of getting information to me, but it's like, I wonder what happened to, and I'll go look it up, on the wonderful internet. I find that they just died.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no way why I even thought of that person. I hadn't thought about them in years, and all of a sudden I wonder what happened to, and then I see that. It makes me a little nervous sometimes, because, I wonder, if when something's going on, and I have called people when it hasn't been that outcome, to see how they're doing and check in on them, and it made a difference that they needed to hear from me.
It's quite intentional. People send messages all the time, and some of us can receive those messages, and some of us are either not trained, or we don't know what to do, or we're fearful of it. But I grew up with it, and my family can telepath to each other, and we can also telepath to people who are no longer living. So it just takes away the idea that death is forever. Death isn't forever, because you can still reach those people
Mhm.
You know, the
I
paranormal,
believe that.
yeah, the
Mm.
paranormal poem that I have in there when my mother had ripped the oxygen tubes out of her nose, and
Mhm.
a ghost came into my room and told me I had to go.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting because my aunts stayed over that night and they were in her room. So I could get
Mhm.
finally one good night's sleep because I was getting pretty thin and pretty knocked out from all of my exertions. And instead, they fell asleep and they didn't notice that she had pulled the oxygen tubes out of her nose and she would have been dead by the morning, and I obviously was summoned because this was not her time to die.
Mm. Mm. May know to you. That's very interesting and believable, very believable, because I've had some experiences too. Um, I've been a caregiver to, more than one person,
Mm-hmm.
in their final, days, and have experienced some interesting things in that process. So definitely. Wow. Maybe this is a good time for another poem.
Yes, let me read the early visit from the Grim Reaper.
Okay.
Amid buffed blackness of the guest room's drapes, his baritone commanded me to go. What's this about? I want to say. But no, emerges first. I'm staying. There's no cape, no hood, no scythe. Night hides his shrunken shape, revealing just his James Earl Jones audio, repeating, Go! Asleep, I'm puzzled, slow to understand. I rise, there's no escape. Lost in the territory of morphine, you turned off your oxygen, approached death's ledge. Observed by him, I help you breathe again. His timing's off, though we'll soon reconvene. A grimace rises from the bedding's edge as if to say, Not now, I'll tell you when.
Um, Reading that, I can imagine that brings up some feelings about that period of time.
Yes,
Mm.
I was so, when I realized what was going on in that room, it wasn't my house, and my mother was sleeping in this big queen size or king size bed, and uh, I'm on the ground looking for these tubes, scooting under the bed, and woke up my aunts. And my aunt said, What are you doing here? And I said, Why aren't you awake? You're supposed to be watching her. So now all the lights are on, and I need a flashlight, and I need tools, and I have to go in the garage. And, again, it's not my house. I'm not familiar with these things. In your house, if you need a flashlight, you know where it is.
Exactly.
In my parents' house, what do I know? So the whole house wakes up, and but I got her connected, and then in the morning, my very Catholic aunts um, say, she was going to die anyway, and I said, well, you know, someone came from the afterlife and told me it's not her time, and I had to do this. What am I going to do? Walk in the room, see that my mother is not breathing, she doesn't have oxygen, and say, "Oh well, she's going to die." Walk out, close the door. No,
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 doesn't work that way.
no, not this daughter. No.
Uh-uh. No, would have done exactly the same thing. Exactly.
And my mother lived for another 8 or 9 days after that.
There
So
you
she,
go.
she was close. Of course, she was dying. Everybody knew she was dying, but it was not her time. It was not her
No.
time. Yeah. And I was summoned, and I did what I was supposed to do. Well, my mother was totally like, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be over there sleeping," and just a lot of confusion because, of course, she
Mhm.
did have some oxygen in her.
Right.
I don't know how long. I couldn't tell how long this was out,
Sure.
but I couldn't find those tubes right away. Lights had to go on, and you know.
Sure.
And
Yeah. Mm. Well, I'm glad that you paid attention to that message because it wasn't her day. It wasn't her time. And
Wasn't.
if there's anything that we like to be able to feel like we have some control over, isn't it to know when our time is going to be? And for some reason, it was still within her that desire to live, or she would have passed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
Mm-hmm.
my opinion. That's all it is. It's all it's worth, is my opinion. But you know, having experienced that with others, I think we have to respect that that time comes when that time is supposed to come, not when we make it too hasty.
Yes, yeah. You hear about people on a plane and the plane crashes and there's one or two survivors and then there's the other two people who didn't make it to the airport on time and you just know it wasn't their time to die.
Exactly. Well, let's take this over to something that's probably less sad. Let's talk about your writing process.
When I decided, I had these scattered poems about my mother, as I said, written in the 1990s, before the internet or in the early days of the internet, and never thought, oh, this should be a book. It was just, 4 or 5 poems. But realizing the impact that it had on so many people when they were clustered together in Apprentice to the Night, as soon as I finished with that book, then I just said, well, I just have to sit down and really think about this process. And I read a lot of books about cancer, and cancer books either go one or two ways. Either it's a recovery story or it isn't. Right, Lisa?
Yeah.
Only two ways that it can go. And of course I didn't have cancer. It was my mother who had the cancer. So now there's three of us in the room. There's the disease, my mother, and myself. So I didn't want to do it as, I'm not Mother Teresa. My mother and I really had a very strained relationship for many years. So I didn't want to make it seem like, oh, here's the daughter giving up her life and, tending to her mother. I didn't want it to be that kind of book because it would have been very false. So, as you know, I made it a story of adultery.
Exactly.
Where he's the boyfriend who's always in bed with the girlfriend and wants to break up the home and is trying to seduce her away from her family and so forth. And then I didn't want it to be a book that was sad at the end, so then I decided to give it a funicular structure. And when the daughter arrives, the mother is in bad shape and the plants are in bad shape, but she can do something about the plants. So as the mother is declining, the plants are getting healthier, and at the end, she rejoices in the company of the plants as she's writing the eulogy.
It's a picture of the cover, and I thought I'd bring it up to the screen
Yeah,
so it's a little
please.
bit
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah.
And fascinated by it. I think it's excellent cover.
Oh, thank you. That's your North Carolina artist, Erin Caldwell.
Yeah, wonderful work. And I see the child in the corner, which would be representative of you.
Right.
And when I first saw this picture, I wasn't too sure about it, but it grew on me. And now I can really see it. It's perfect for this book.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that there was a lot of love with your friends that gave you feedback behind this, and even helped with the lettering and things like that. Made my job easier.
Oh, good, good. Thank you.
I designed a lot of covers, and so this one I didn't really do that much with. And when you were talking about the whole allurance and that, and you can see that. You can see it in the eyes of the woman who's representative of your mother, and they can see it in the eyes that a dazed look, like they have, have a Casanova in front of them.
Right,
And so,
mesmerized, seduced by this
yes.
Casanova, this lover
Hmm.
who's promising everything, and I do see a disease uh, in terms of a romance because
Hmm.
it's obsessive, it's all consuming. People who are sick are only thinking about themselves and the disease. So, what is that like? That's like the height of a love affair.
Hmm.
At least I see it that way.
Well, it becomes all of everything in your life. It becomes your center point.
Mhm.
There's you and there's this disease, and either you're going to marry it or you're going to figure out a way to divorce it, and
Yeah.
we don't always have those controls,
Right.
and there's that in between.
Right, right.
So,
That's like the
mm,
amygdala hijack when you meet someone and you just get swept away and you can only talk about the disease, you can only talk about the boyfriend, you only want to say his name. I mean, it just reminds me of the same thing all over again, that being swept into this other reality.
exactly. Wow. Well, you have really done a fantastic job of bringing in all these different aspects of what it is to live um, in this situation, be in the family role, and to bring in the amaryllis as a symbol of life that goes on.
Yeah.
So I really great job on that.
Yes, thank you. And you'll see your Christmas card has a big amaryllis in gold on it because I'm going to promote my book to my whole Christmas card list.
There you go. Why not?
Well, many of them knew my mother, so they'd better buy this book or else.
And speaking of, doing the marketing of your book and being clever with the Christmas cards and that, I'm sure there'll be people listening to us that are um, interested in publishing their own works. What kind of advice would you give someone who's thinking about publishing the poetry?
I would definitely, I ran a critique group in the science fiction and poetry society for several years, and it was a tremendous, tremendous boost to me. And everybody was in the group. Everybody got better as a poet. Everybody published in better journals with better payouts and so forth. So I definitely am a proponent of either being in a critique group, starting a critique group, or at least getting a good critique partner. I know a lot of novelist friends of mine have a critique partner. Um, I think that's a little bit too tight of a dyad. I'd rather have perspectives from about 6 people versus just one critique partner who may have a very different taste from the publisher I'm trying to attract or the agent I'm trying to attract. But I definitely recommend writing in a journal every single day, tracking your progress, tracking your acceptances, tracking your rejections. What do people say when they reject you? Are you just getting the same flat, oh, we're so grateful you submitted to us, but we didn't take it, but keep on writing? That kind of boilerplate that doesn't take you anywhere. But track track what people are saying to you when they almost take a poem, and track who is just wasting your time. If I don't get certain kind of encouragement in a rejection letter, I just cross them off my list because it's not efficient. It's not efficient to keep going where you're not appreciated. There's that old saying, bloom where you were planted. And you always want to find your tribe, meaning the lit magazine sphere that you fit into. And you always want to have your aspiration. You always want to go a little bit higher and see if you can break in, break through that ceiling. But you don't want to go to a place where your writing and their writing are nothing like each other and just waste your time. Do you know?
Exactly. Exactly. Very, very good advice, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. You were recently published in Fine Lines for as
Thank
a
you.
feature
Yes,
book.
thank you. Yes, that was great to see. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you for doing that. That gets more people familiar with you, and I think that's important.
Yeah.
And one of the when you were talking about writing every day, I thought about fine lines, and I thought about David Martin, the founder of Fine Lines. He writes every single day, and gets up with early before the crack of dawn, and
Mm.
writes,
Mm.
and is really religious about it and encourages that. With we have those different conferences, and always encourages people to keep journaling, keep writing,
Oh yeah,
and
journaling. Hmm.
yeah,
Do you keep a
it's very
journal?
important.
Do you keep a journal?
I keep a journal, but my journal's a little bit different. It's not just a constant writing kind of thing where I just write every day in it. But it's good because I'm an artist too, and my mind goes different directions. I'll have thoughts that are going on, and then facts that I want to remember, and then drawings that I want to do something with.
Yeah.
So my journal is still a journal. It's just
Sure.
a different kind of a journal, but everybody's journal is different.
Everybody's journal
You
is
know.
different. Yeah.
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 And I did like the Artist Way program, where you write
Yes.
every day and do your morning,
Yes. Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so that also is very helpful. I think to get a lot of that really worked well for me to help
Mhm.
me come to grips with some things in life. And I think Julia Cameron is very intelligent to
Yes.
come up with that idea.
Yeah.
So,
It was a great book, bestseller.
yes, there was a lady here in Cary, North Carolina, who had a course in it. We met for I don't know 6 or 8 weeks. I can't remember now. But we keep our morning pages, and we talk about different things. And we'd have a session every week, and talk about different things, and then work on something creative. And I found that to be very beneficial. And then you also develop your group of people who you can count on to give you honest feedback.
Honest
You know,
feedback.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that you talk about the critique group, I found that to be very helpful. And I have a group that we meet on Monday morning pretty religiously. I don't like things to mess with my Monday morning group. And if we have something we're working on, we run it by the group, and we write together, and
Hmm.
then we share things if we have any help with it. And I find that to be very helpful.
Yeah. Very helpful. Very helpful. So I encourage people either join a group, or if there's no group, start a group. Get like-minded people together. Has to be like-minded people. I was talking to a gentleman who had never had a group, and he was just sort of opening the door. Oh, if you write children's books, fine. If you write novels, no, no. You have to niche down.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely
Yeah.
have to niche down. But I've learned that the earlier books that I wrote, I would never write them the same way. I mean, even though I've won prizes, I won the Elgin Award
Mm-hmm.
for Route Obscure and Lonely and so forth. For example, one of the books that's coming up that I'm working on, and it's been it's been really a wonderful, wonderful experience. It's called Return of the Werewolf Poems, and it's bringing the werewolf into social justice problems. So there are sex traffickers, there's domestic abuse, there's romance scandals and everything. And there's so many genre magazines that have this ban. Don't send us vampire books, vampire poems. Don't send us werewolf stories. And they love those things because the standard werewolf poem is just the old origin story, and it's the same old nonsense again and again. And the werewolves aren't really out in the world. They're either glamorous or they're predators, but they're not out in the world, doing things like rescuing children from from sex traffickers and things like that. And one of the editors, who absolutely has a ban against werewolf poems, wrote the forward for my book about how he
True
got to
irony.
he got to love the werewolf because he read very different kinds of poems. But another thing about the werewolf book is that a werewolf is a shapeshifter. And you always hear about werewolf, but there are also cats and bears, and Dracula is also a shapeshifter. In the book, he takes form of a lizard and he crawls down the castle wall. Hollywood didn't know what to do with a lizard, so they made him a bat, and things like that. But all the poems shapeshift. So they're meso-stitch acrostic poems, there's echo verse, there's nonettes, glosses. Every poem keeps you off center because it shapeshifts.
Well, that's a talent. To write.
Thank you.
Such a talent.
But it's coming up with these things, like how to make it different. How to make the werewolf poem that people actually want to read again.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely on point. And now we're getting into Halloween and all of that. Does that bring on any particular poetry writing vibes?
Well, I was born October 24th, so October is my month. It is my month. And I always do better in October. I'm always even more prolific and taking on all sorts of things because I have all these October-based poems, more than is natural in most people's oeuvre, because I just love the month so much. So I have one that's called Why the Scarecrow Loves October, and so forth. I mean,
Very nice.
Just everything October. It all comes down to October.
You celebrate your birthday with the book.
Yes.
And any better than that?
Halloween is a good time to launch a scary book.
Absolutely. So,
but you asked me about marketing. One of your questions. Shall we talk about marketing?
Yes, please do.
One of the things is that if you're the type of writer that your book comes out once every 5 or 6 years, or spaced even more than that, you're going to have much more of a difficult time marketing than if you're prolific. Because if you're prolific, you're constantly feeding the reviewers. You always have something to give. And people will review for years and be very dedicated, and then they'll just drop off the face of the earth. Life will change for them, or they get tired of it, and you'll never see them again. But if you can engage people somewhat regularly, because you have 2 books a year or 3 books a year, you really have a running start, and it makes it much easier. But there's definite program of the care and feeding of your reviewers. You can't just pop up. I mean, it's just like I don't see you for 10 years, and then I say, Lisa, come to my destination wedding. It'll only cost you $10,000. Are you going to show up for me? You're going to say, well,
Not
I think
likely.
I'll just send a card. Yeah, I'll just send her a card. I haven't seen her in 10 years. But if I see you regularly, and I'm regularly providing value to your life, you're much more likely to take an interest in my book. So I'm always staying in touch with this group. I keep getting more and more reviewers who have reviewed other books, and I have this, care and feeding, maintenance. They'll be getting my Halloween card. They'll be getting tips on social media, ways that I provide value to them. And then when I need them, I've already given them favors and attention and sunshine.
Exactly. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. I have a nucleus of that with different authors that support one another. With Prolific Pulse, we have a subgroup within the group that really, cheerleads one another and shares one another's works. And I love that. It's a natural environment for them to do that for one another. So, just like with the Masticadoras.
Yes.
And they're all over the world.
They really are.
Expanding more and more.
Yeah.
And those are your people who celebrate writers. And there's a mutual feeling amongst them. So,
right.
and I love it, and it makes me compelled to want to share, when they post something on the blog, to reblog it and that, because I have so much respect for what people put forward, and support for one another. It's a natural thing, not a, you know, something where they feel like they have to do something, but they want to.
Yes.
It's a real caring environment.
Yeah.
So, and I have, some people that I know I can count on, to help with reviews, because I know of their intentions and their compassions, and we share a lot of the same things, so it makes a big difference in your relationships, and I don't take any of that for granted. I think it's very important.
Oh, yeah, you can't take any of that for granted. And
Mm.
one of the ways that you can always get a reviewer to work with you is to ask how you can work together. Do they need a guest post? Do they need anything that you can do? And that opens the door very, very wide, because otherwise everybody is knocking on the door. Review my book. Hello, you don't know me, but review my book. Knock, knock. Review my book. And it's like, after a while,
It's
these
a
people
big
have a
ask.
life. Yeah.
It's a big ask to ask someone to review your book. I've been honored, and now I'm writing an introduction for someone's book, not one of the people that I'm publishing, but, just a friend in the poetry world. And it's an honor to be asked to review their book. It's an excellent book of poetry. And I take it seriously, what I'm doing with it. And, you want a person to feel honored to review your work, because you have to put work forward that is good poetry,
Yes.
and that makes it kind of easy to be able to write a foreword or an introduction or anything like that, or a recommendation.
Right.
As one who I'm a judge for, writers, and I read about 200 books a year,
Oh boy.
and
Oh boy.
it requires me to scrutinize quite a bit. So I think I do a pretty good job of recognizing the good stuff. And there's a lot of good stuff out there, that's for sure. A lot of people, hope people don't ever get fearful of the bannings and all of that, and just makes them want to write even more, to get their words out there. So, I'm getting on my soapbox, but I want to ask you,
Yes.
if someone wants to buy your books, where would they go?
Well, you're going to put them on Amazon, right? And
Yes.
and Barnes and Noble. And
Mhm.
and do you do bookshop too?
Bookshop, yes.
Great. Fabulous. Fabulous. Fabulous.
Yes, bookshop is actually a preference for me. I mean, I like all of them for their own reasons, but the thing I like about bookshop is you can go on there and designate a bookstore to receive, a percentage of the profits for the book.
Ah, I
So
didn't know.
it's a way that you can
Ah.
help. If you want to be charitable to a bookstore, I have a bookstore that I'm charitable to, because they're trying to grow in this area, and they need all the financial help they can get to build their brick and mortar store. So I actually selected them to get commissions off of the books,
Oh, very nice. Very
for their
nice.
shop.
Yeah.
And, for that, I could actually set up my own bookshop store, and I may do that at some point, but for right now, I designate them as the recipients of, funds that are, commissions that are made from the stores. So why not help one another out? So,
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Is it easy to review on Bookshop too? Do they accept reviews?
I have not tried to do any reviews on bookshops. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. That's certainly something to find out.
Yeah.
I'll have to research
I've,
that.
I've never heard about somebody reviewing on Bookshop.
I definitely will check into that. I just had a meeting with the bookshop representative a couple weeks ago, but I don't recall anything about reviewing, but I will find out. I sure will. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, for your books with Prolific Pulse, like I do with all the authors for Prolific Pulse Press, you'll have your own page. So it'll be like prolificpulse.com/ LindaAnn LoSchiavo, and they'll be able to go right to your page and see your book on there.
Yes.
And of course, they'll need to buy several copies.
Oh, yeah, I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. for all the caregivers out there and all the people who love their mother, and
Yeah.
we're hoping to draw in on some of the cancer groups too. You think there's a chance that we could get them interested in us?
You know, you don't, if you don't try, you don't know. So you can certainly approach groups.
When I was writing it and I was looking for reviews, I wrote to the American Cancer Society, and they said no, they absolutely would not review my book because they had to keep kind of distant from it. They didn't
Yeah.
want to endorse it and da 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 da. So that gave me a feeling like, are you people just collecting a salary or do you really care about cancer? I don't know.
I ran into some of that too with another group of, nationally known group that did not want to endorse something, had to do with the disease. So, I'm like, well, okay, you're lost, you know. Tells me where to put my money.
Tells you where to put the money exactly. Thank you, thank you. The press that did Always Haunted Halloween Poems, especially with the nonsense that's going on with Amazon, they decided to open up their own bookshop on their website. And those women are doing so many novels and short story books and poetry books. I was kind of astounded that they were taking this on too, but they said that it was a better experience for the authors. But it's a team. It's a team of women. It's not just one person.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, LindaAnn, because I have, for my authors, a link on my site where a person can buy the book direct.
Oh, perfect, perfect.
And actually, it's a discount link. So if a person goes to the website, you have to come to my website,
Hmm.
com,
I'm glad you
and go to
told
the
me.
author's page.
Yeah, I'm
There will be
glad
a
you
discount.
told me. Yeah, yeah,
And
perfect.
there's a U.S. and U.K. right now. That's the two areas that we can offer the discount. I'm limited about what I'm allowed to give. So U.S. and U.K. are the ones that we're giving right now.
Great,
And
great. That's
yeah,
super.
so another reason to come visit the website.
I'm glad you told me. I'm glad you told me. Yeah. Is
Absolutely.
Will there be an ARC sign up sheet? Do you think?
I can put one up there. I was looking into that yesterday. I just
Yeah.
have to do a little bit more research on it.
Yeah.
And if it looks like, I can do it, I'm going to try.
Well,
I was looking at sign up forms yesterday, at the nuances of it with
I know
technology.
the software. Yeah. But then you'll
Yeah.
have all these emails for your newsletter because
Hmm.
you put a check mark next to it and say accept our newsletter, and
Yeah,
then all of a sudden you have your newsletter to send to those people.
exactly. I do have a newsletter sign up,
I know. Yeah.
but you are making a very good point. That's another marketing idea.
It's another marketing idea. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because why wouldn't
The
they want to
people
get?
listening, pay attention.
Yeah. Yeah. But when it comes to reviews, I know that Elliot Rubin goes around and does a lot of Zoom calls with the synagogues and everything. So he's found his tribe.
Yes, he has. Elliot is the writingest poet, and he books just like that. I've
Well,
produced, I think, 3 of his books. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, you have. Well, Nolcha is author. She did that Renge book, and now she has Between the Lines and before something else with Tomorrow, Ken Tomorrow.
We can.
Yeah.
Yeah, got a book now. Yeah, keep popping.
We're all trying to get away from Trump by just writing poetry, so we don't have to hear it on the next thing. That
I have actually one of the authors, William Waldorf, has one of his books on audio, and it's either through Amazon. We did it through Amazon. Contacted me to say a book, and it is a computer generated voice. It's not a real person reading. And I found one that's got a little bit of a UK English kind of, shared it with William too. So we made him a UK poet, so to speak.
oh,
But
good,
the
good,
voice sounded more clear than the
hmm,
choice they gave me for the American English poet.
interesting,
So,
interesting.
dabbled with it, and so now he has an audio book out there. It's not his voice, but that's okay. It doesn't cost anything, It's time to put it together.
Right.
It is a little bit of a learning curve, and I do get now, since that's happened, opportunities if anybody wants to have their book done that way. Amazon picks and chooses who to let me do, but they will offer that from time to time.
Interesting. It's very interesting.
Mhm.
Always Haunted, they asked if I wanted an audiobook, and I said yes, but it never actually happened. But on September 18th, when we had that panel where they had all that technical trouble and everybody met with that panel of 6,
Mhm.
right?
Yes, I remember
Yeah.
trying to get in there.
Yeah, they said that they were on Zoom, communicated to the audience. Didn't see any of them. They told us, the readers, to sign on 30 minutes ahead. So I was there 35 minutes ahead, and they 3 minutes to 7. And we didn't know there was any technical trouble. They were sending out messages to us, and we didn't hear them.
Yeah, it happens.
But
One of the things
yeah.
that I did for the audio, this is a little bit different, but it was a creative thing. It's a version of Jill Sharon Kimmelman's book, videos and some audios. Ebook that she has for that has extra content, which someone can go into the ebook and click on the link and go right straight to like a YouTube video where someone is reading a poem. It gave you the real voice of the person.
It really was
the
Jill's
guest
voice.
reading the poem.
It really was Jill's voice in that case.
And and we also had some guest poets that in there. And so it was like you get bonus with the ebook to go that route. So that was a fun. It was just kind of an idea I had, and I thought, well, and so I tried it and it worked. So there are ways around things. So and one of the things that can be done with an ebook is to put links in there for their YouTube pages and things like that. So yeah.
I know that some people are vibrant when they read, and some people aren't. So for the people who aren't that vibrant, maybe the AI voice is a really good option. Delighted when I saw a chat after, the next day they sent us the chat. I couldn't pay attention to the chat on September 18th, but I noticed that several people were typing in my sentences. There's a point, I was reading the Poltergeist on President Street, an experience that happened when my uncle used to have poker games in a violently haunted house in Brooklyn on President Street, and the in the real time, before it becomes a poltergeist, it's a real woman who's in an abusive marriage, and she kills her in that house. Lozenges the word burial under her. He's looking for a shovel and so forth. And all the people are like writing the sentences. But it's a very, very dramatic reading. I've heard people do my poem on podcasts, and it's the vanilla version, frankly, versus the way I do it, because
exactly.
I can imitate the poltergeist. It's all these different, but really wonderful when you can strike the balance, when you can really read your own work. The mic, if you have the right equipment.
I think so. I think if it can be the actual poet, it's better most of the time. I think that works out pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, LindaAnn, it's been delightful talking with you today.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity.
So glad to meet you in kind of Zoom person. So never know, we might actually meet someday. So I wish you the best with your books, and you have a wonderful day.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate everything you do.